Browns are naming Deshaun Watson as their starting quarterback. That's per multiple reports. Watson gets the nod over second-year QB Shedeur Sanders.
I don't know what the that was.
You know, there's a popular saying that when you hit rock bottom, it can only go up from there. And for the most part, I think that's largely true. Unless you're a Browns fan, because man, it always just gets worse no matter how far you hit rock bottom. In light of Deshaun Watson being named the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns for the 2026 season, I wanted to go ahead and take a look back at the worst trade possibly in NFL history. Imagine giving up 3 first-round picks, 2 fourth-round picks, and a third-round pick for a quarterback. Then giving that quarterback a fully guaranteed $230 million contract. After 4 years, he's played just 19 games for your team. You're still trying to figure out if he can actually be your quarterback, and your own fans are booing him off the field during the preseason. Oh, and then you look back at the team you traded with, they used your draft picks to help build one of the most promising young rosters currently in the NFL. And somehow, in 2026, the Cleveland Browns are making the decision to start Deshaun Watson.
What? Well, you can't do this to me.
You know how much I sacrificed?
How in the world did this happen, and how did we get here? Because when you look at the entire story of the Deshaun Watson trade, it might actually be the worst trade in NFL history. And the fact that it involves the Browns, quite frankly, is a little bit ironic and also not surprising in the slightest. To understand why the Browns even made this trade in the first place, we have to go all the way back to Houston when Deshaun Watson was first drafted. Deshaun Watson is honestly kind of just a meme quarterback at this point, just your typical bad quarterback. No one wants to see him hit the field. It's quite frankly a little bit embarrassing at this point. But Deshaun Watson wasn't always a bad quarterback. He was actually really, really good in the beginning of his career. The Houston Texans drafted Watson 12th overall in the 2017 NFL Draft after he had just won the national championship at Clemson. The Texans were pretty bad at this point before they drafted Watson, and he definitely looked like someone that could turn around this franchise and actually become the face of it. He only played in 6 games in his rookie season due to injury, so we won't really cover that. But in 2018, the next season, Watson threw for more than 4,100 yards and 26 touchdowns, with only 9 interceptions. Then in 2019, he took another step forward. He led Houston to a 10-5 record in his 15 starts, threw for 3,800 yards and 26 touchdowns, and helped the Texans win the AFC South. These are pretty solid stats, especially for a young quarterback. He definitely had a good start to his career, but then came 2020, which is where he really broke out. He threw for 4,800 yards and 33 touchdowns, while only throwing 7 interceptions. He led the NFL in passing yards this season, but it all was for naught as the Texans went 4-12 that season. So Watson was putting up those numbers while playing on an absolutely abysmal team. Just looking at this, Cleveland's eventual decision makes a lot more sense. This wasn't a scrub that they were trading for. This wasn't a project. This was a proven superstar quarterback that was breaking out into his prime, and by all means looked poised to take that next even further step. So again, simply based on this alone, Cleveland was getting by all means a franchise quarterback, at least on paper. But there was one big problem. After the 2020 season, Watson's relationship with the Texans completely deteriorated. He wanted out of Houston, and by the 2021 season, he wasn't even playing at all. At this same time, Watson was facing numerous allegations of sexual misconduct from women who said he behaved inappropriately during massage appointments. And of course, as one does, Watson denied any wrongdoing. 2 Texas grand juries ultimately declined to indict him criminally, but the NFL later suspended him for 11 games and fined him $5 million for violating the league's personal conduct policy. And this is where Cleveland's decision gets quite interesting, because you would think that a player that goes through all of this sort of turmoil, all this controversy, pretty much makes a player untouchable. He can no longer be trusted by any franchise, and typically it takes a while for an NFL team to actually reach out and give this player a chance. However, if you're a potential superstar quarterback, or if you can just play football in general in the NFL, you're going to get let off pretty easily, and you're going to get given a chance relatively quickly. And of course, the Browns being the Browns, they still wanted this guy. After some weird negotiations, on March 18th, 2022, Cleveland finally did pull the trigger, and the price was absolutely massive. And I'm not even just talking about draft picks here, I'm talking about the whole package. Houston got 3 first-round picks, a third-round pick, and 2 fourth-round picks. The Browns, of course, received Deshaun Watson and a 2024 6th-round pick in return. But it doesn't stop there. We're just getting started, because that's not even the worst of it. Well, maybe it is, depending on what side you fall on. But they also gave Watson a 5-year, $230 million fully guaranteed contract. But the NFL, with the nature of the sport and how quickly things change in the sport, fully guaranteed contracts are pretty much a given in terms of never being given out. And of course, the Browns, being the Browns, gave him fully guaranteed money. So in doing this, Cleveland basically was just ignoring anything else that was wrong with this guy and just simply was going based off of what he could be based on his time in Houston, which is a lot to expect for a guy that has gone through a ton of legal troubles and hadn't seen the field in practically 2 years by the time he eventually did see the field for the Browns. There was a little bit of hope though, because if Deshaun Watson could retain that form that he did in Houston with the Browns, then we could be looking at a good situation here, and the Browns could finally be getting out of their purgatory that they have been in for the last, forever. Deshaun's Browns tenure got off to a pretty predictable start when he was suspended for 11 games of the 2022 season due to his sexual misconduct allegations. So they traded 3 first-round picks and guaranteed him all this money and had to wait until December just to see him play. And when he did return, like I said before, it looked like he hadn't played football in a long time. In 6 games, Watson completed just 58.2% of his passes, threw 7 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, and the Browns went 3-3 in that span. Of course, this was a very small sample size, so obviously the Browns were more than willing to give him some time to see how he would develop into his role. So 2023 was supposed to be the year. He's going to have a full training camp. He's not going to be suspended. He's going to have a full year ahead of him to make that statement that he needed to make in order to make the Browns feel comfortable in their investment. However, this was just the start to another disaster. The Browns did not, and still have not, gotten the Deshaun Watson that they traded for. He played in 6 games in 2023 before a shoulder injury ended his season. And even before the injury, he wasn't consistently playing like the quarterback Cleveland thought he was getting. Fast forward to 2024, Watson would start 7 games and only go 1-6. He threw for 1,100 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions with a 21 QBR. This is when Deshaun would suffer a season-ending Achilles injury. As I said before, if you're the Browns, it could always get worse. And it is always going to get worse, unfortunately. If he's not riddled with controversy, he's riddled with injuries. And they just can't seem to catch a break. I think this was essentially the moment when the Browns' huge investment became quite impossible to ignore. Because again, we're talking about a quarterback making $230 million guaranteed, who couldn't stay healthy and also wasn't playing well. On top of that, had barely even played for the team. So the Cleveland side of the trade, it is well known that they just completely got the short end of the stick. I mean, he quite frankly looked like me and you out there, dog. Like, that was embarrassing. But looking at the Texans side of the trade, this is where it gets even more painful for the Browns. Because again, Cleveland was struggling to figure out Watson, but Houston had all these draft picks, and let me tell you, they used them extremely well. The Texans used Cleveland's 2023 first-round pick as part of the deal that allowed them to move up and select Will Anderson Jr., 3rd overall, and Houston already had the 2nd overall pick that year, which they then selected CJ Stroud. So again, the Browns traded 3 first-round picks for Deshaun Watson, and Houston essentially turned that draft capital into pieces of a completely new franchise, with players like CJ Stroud, Will Anderson Jr., Tank Dell, Kenyon Green, Kalen Bullock, and Kamari Lassiter. And again, all this time, Cleveland was still trying to get Watson healthy and just play a full season. And by 2025, even Browns ownership had essentially admitted the obvious. Jimmy Haslam called the Watson acquisition a big swing and miss. And honestly, that's probably putting it a little mildly. This was the biggest swing and miss you could ever have. But what makes this swing and miss so hard to move on from is the fact that you gave him so much money to begin with. It's just extremely hard to move on from a player that's making that much money and accept basically just dead cap hits by releasing him. The 2025 season saw Shedeur Sanders start for the Cleveland Browns, as well as, what's that fool's name? Dylan Gabriel. Golly, dude. But yeah, anyway, Deshaun Watson, he never saw the field in 2025. He was dealing with the aftermath of the Achilles injury and underwent additional surgeries in order to, fix the Achilles. So Cleveland went through this season again of not getting anything meaningful from Deshaun. And by this point, it's been 4 seasons and he's only played in 19 games for Cleveland. He's essentially played 1 full season in the span of 4 seasons, which is astronomical. And again, they're still paying him $230 million guaranteed. Like, what are we doing here? By this time, I think everyone figured that it was time to cut bait. There's no salvaging this. The Browns just got to cut him. They got to release him and just move on to the future with Shedeur and just see what you got with him. And if he doesn't, and if Shedeur is not the guy, then you can draft another quarterback, especially with this draft class coming up in 2027. There's some good prospects there. Just reset. The Browns have so much offensive talent on their roster. Quinshon Judkins, all the receivers that they have that they just drafted, Casey Concepcion, Denzel Boston, Isaiah Bond. They have so much talent on that roster, offensively and even defensively too, even with the reduction of Myles Garrett. They have so much value and so much talent on that offensive side of the ball that they just can't mess around and waste time trying to find a good quarterback that can actually take advantage of the talent that they have, which is what makes the next and newest development even more hilarious. The 2026 preseason is 2 weeks in with only 1 week left, and honestly at this point everyone figured that this was going to be Shedeur's starting role. He's going to get the starting job. He's going to go into week 1, and they're just going to cut bait, like I said again, with Deshaun. During this preseason, let's just say Deshaun Watson has played less than spectacular. In his outing against the Buffalo Bills recently, Watson completed only 5 of 12 passes for 36 yards and threw an interception. And this is when his own home crowd straight up booed him off the field. I mean, you really can't make this up. Like, yeah, he's been booed before for other reasons, mainly being bad, but also, this is a new one here where Cleveland fans are just tired of it, man. I feel so bad for Cleveland, man. It's unreal. And after this, Watson had some choice comments saying that he felt disrespected. And after all of this, at the time of recording, August 24th, the Browns have named Deshaun Watson the starter going into the 2026 season. Honestly, when I saw this report, I just started laughing, man. I mean, I kind of thought the Browns would have turned a corner and, done the right thing and did what, everyone was saying that they were going to do in starting Shedeur. But making this decision to start Deshaun is it's certainly one of the decisions of all time. Now, let me be clear. From a logistics standpoint, it does make sense. They spent so much money on Deshaun. It almost feels wrong to just not play him and to not give him one more chance. But if you're a Browns fan, this just feels like a slap in the face. You feel completely disrespected. This is unbelievable. So I wanted to ask this question again. Is this the worst trade in NFL history? Obviously, this is subjective. There are quite a few, legendary disasters when it comes to trades in the NFL. Even one in recent memory by my 49ers making that Trey Lance trade to draft him in the first round, 3rd overall. That was abysmal, but luckily they kind of got it skirted under the rug due to kind of Brock Purdy saving them a little bit. So that goes up there with one of the worst ones for sure. Herschel Walker's another one. Ricky Williams, another one. Yeah, no, this is bad. This is real bad. I mean, honestly, at this point, Deshaun Watson's probably, I'd give or take 2 or 3 bad weeks away from just getting cut straight up. But looking at Houston, they got, one of the best defenses in the NFL right now, potentially a Super Bowl roster. And yeah, CJ Stroud, he had a good rookie season. He is struggling kind of recently. He is kind of in this sort of make or break season, according to a lot of people, where he's going to have to perform. But still, the amount of draft capital that Cleveland had to give up to get Deshaun is just uncomparable to what Houston got in advance. I mean, the Browns essentially just gave Houston a good roster for free. There's no comparison here. Deshaun is literally probably about to get cut this season, and Houston is on their way to, potentially Super Bowl aspirations as far as a roster standpoint. So yeah, to me, this definitely takes the cake. This is the worst trade in NFL history. But who knows? He's healthy. He, as in Deshaun Watson, he's healthy. He's starting week 1. And he technically still has a chance to change the narrative, albeit a very small 1% chance. It's very unlikely that he even comes back to playing like he did in Houston. I mean, shoot, preseason that's one of the worst performances I've ever seen in preseason. And you're playing against backups and scrubs. What are we even talking about here? But in the off chance that he ends up playing well, maybe he can turn it around as far as, the decision and see how we look back at this trade, change that opinion on how we look back at this trade. Who knows? But again, the Browns are gonna brown. They didn't just trade away their future for a quarterback. They traded away their future, and they're still waiting to see if they got the quarterback they paid for 5 years later. I'm really sorry, Browns fans. I really feel so bad.